ahead and hop into it this morning, and we'll have folks hop in. They can hop in where we're at. So it looks like we've got Charlie, and then we have got, is it Takuma, I believe, dropping in with us today. So it'll be a little bit of a different format since we've got such a small group. So I think the way we'll do it today is we'll kind of just have this general introduction session here at the beginning, and then we'll roll into the presentation, which is discussing estate planning geared towards multi-unit commercial investors, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. So to get started, I'll go ahead. I'll introduce myself. My name is Megan Templeton. I am one of the consulting attorneys here at Royal Legal. Have been doing so for about 4.5 years, between 3 and 4. But inside of that, have been doing real estate, small business, entrepreneur law for much longer. And so have been, love enjoying my time here. My portfolio is pretty diverse. I like to keep it in a couple different areas. So I've got history in short-term rentals, long-term rentals, good bit of a notes and syndication type investing, and then also microloans. And so, with this today, estate planning is something I'm particularly passionate about because I have, in my law practice, I've seen it gone wrong so many times. And so I think this is a great thing, particularly for investors who are getting started, to get all their ducks in a row. So that's a little bit about me. Now, Charlie, Takuma, if you guys would like to share, you're welcome to. If not, I'll give it about 30 seconds. You can throw up your hand if you'd like to, which is you can do by using the reaction, the button at the bottom, and then we'll go from there.
All right, so thank you for having me here. My name is Takuma Guzman. I basically just signed up for this Royal what is that? Sorry for mistaking the name. Royal. 1 second.
No, you're good.
Can you verify the name for me that I'm inside of? What is this?
Royal? So the company name is Royal Legal Solutions. Is that what you're looking for?
Right, Royal Legal Solutions, and basically someone through LinkedIn basically sent me the link, say, hey, join this and stuff like that. You get legal advice for certain real estate aspects. So, but besides that, I've been in real estate for the past 7 to 8 years. It's basically buying and selling single family homes in the Philadelphia area, New York area. Okay. Throughout that time, coronavirus happened. I came into creating a company called TG Flip Marketing Agency, which I branded that company to basically to assist with digital marketing for real estate professionals, business professionals. So we basically just want to assist with when it comes to SEO, email marketing, content marketing, Instagram, these type of things that helps us all, generate more leads and more clients, as well as helping out with off-market real estate when it comes to multifamily real estate, single-family real estate. All over the United States, we have different partners that's basically connecting with us to say, hey, Takuma, we have these deals. While we have other clients saying, hey, Takuma, we are looking for these type of deals. And that's basically the concept and the focus of TG Flip Marketing Agency.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. And that's a great business model. And I think, if you continue to come to some of these networking events will be a great resource to be able to connect with folks who may be looking for those services, or so you can tell them a little bit about what you do. But thanks for joining us today. And now Charlie, and I see we've got Lisa as well. I know you guys have hopped in before, but if you'll, so we can get acquainted with Takuma, just kind of give us a general overview, where's your location? What do you got? And I could honestly, I could do yours for you, Charlie, but tell us about yourself, bud.
Good morning, Megan. Hi, my name is Charlie Nakayama. I'm actually over in Hawaii. I've been in the investment arena for, better part of over 30 years now. And of the over 30 years, actually 45 years, I've been in the construction contracting arena. So in my own business alone, over 30 years, and I've been involved in, like you, Megan, I got a pretty diversified portfolio. So I was in single family, I was in short-term rentals, long-term rentals. I'm continuing to invest in a lot of long-term rentals as well as short-term, but Hawaii went through a huge modification in what happened in the short-term rental environment as far as VRBOs and Airbnbs and everything. 2 years ago, the legislation changed. So, we've gone through a major upheaval, and now you're limited to 4 specific resort zones to be able to operate a business like that. Otherwise, you're considered illegal. So even if you have a beautiful property to rent out. So, we had a major upheaval, and roughly about 10,000 plus owners basically shut down their operations and ended up selling properties. But typically Hawaii is a pretty tight market as a whole. So I got a lot of stuff in commercial as well as in industrial markets here. I've been in multifamily, I've been in commercial, industrial. I did a lot of land development with raw land as well, because my specialty was in the construction contracting side and engineering. So I've done a lot there, but my portfolio diversified beyond that into now into crypto. And I also have several, stock portfolio as well too. So my biggest strength is for me is having the expertise and the knowledge for the industry as a whole, including working as a federal inspector for 18 of those years in conjunction with HUD. So I've done a lot with that to help people with actually help HUD develop the rehab program here in Hawaii. And now I'm just focusing on my own. So I am a diversified entrepreneur. I've got several companies, several businesses, other than just real estate. But I'm now trying to hone down and get more specific with the things that I'm doing. So I came to Royal Legal. Actually, I've been following Royal Legal for a few years, but finally decided to make the jump and really got head into everything for the specific reason that I'm looking at restructuring everything I'm doing. And you guys are the best, that I've seen and actually worked with over the years that understand the strategies and tying them all together. So that's me, and that's why I'm here today.
Awesome. Well, thanks, bud. Well, Charlie, it's always a pleasure to have you. And I'm going to chat with you. I may ping you outside of this group at some point. We're talking about doing a construction focus show, like just a one-off, and would love to get your insights into that.
Sure.
But okay, well, great. Well, Lisa, I don't want to put you on the spot. I'll give you about 10 seconds. If you want to share, feel free to go ahead and jump in. If not, no worries at all. Definitely don't want to put anybody on the spot today.
Good morning, everyone. Most people call me you, Lisa, in the community. I'm in Lawton, Fort Sill area, which is Oklahoma. Currently own single family, multifamily, looking at a property multifamily right now, and hopefully I'll be able to buy that today in my areas in a hot location. I'm currently connected with other syndicators because I'm leveling up to go into multifamily. I think that's where I really need to be at, because my vision and goal is to provide affordable housing for veterans and young adults. Mm-hmm. Now, if I don't find what I need, then I'm on the process of developing. I keep hearing the word develop. So, and I'm in the process of building a trade skills ministry in one of my backyards to teach young people how to do basic electrical, plumbing, and framing.
Wow. That's extremely interesting. What a cool, you've got a couple of really cool core motivations that sound like of, getting these structures built for up and coming family, young folks, and then as well as military background, and the trade school is very interesting. So thanks for sharing. I didn't realize, I know you've been in these groups a couple of times, but I hadn't heard that portion of it. So that's good for me to know.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, guys, we'll go ahead and hop into the presentation today. Now, Charlie and you, Lisa, the presentation is probably going to be a lot of duplicate information for you. I think you guys were on earlier in the week. But so we'll walk through that briefly. And then at the end, we'll do the Q&A. And so, Takuma, the way we do these is as we do the presentation, if you have any questions that come top of mind for you, anything that you want us to dive deeper into, if you'll keep those or keep them top of mind, jot them down, or drop them in the chat. At the end, we'll have a Q&A, and you guys are free to ask anything you want. We'll go kind of deeper any topics you want to really delve into. The presentations tend to be high level, just kind of a general overview. So anything you want more information on, let me know at the end, and then we'll go into it. So give me just a minute, guys. Let me get my slide deck pulled up, and then we'll go from there. All right, if you'll give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Fantastic. You guys are wonderful. All right, guys, so we'll hop into it. So once again, my name is Megan Templeton, and today we're going to be talking about estate plans, specifically geared towards estate plans for people who are in the multi-unit commercial investing type of portfolio. And so inside of that, we want to gear it towards as much as we can. Estate planning is a pretty broad general topic, but anything that comes top of mind to you as a multi-unit investor, please hold on to those. We'll tackle them at the end at the Q&A portion. So a little bit of background as far again as myself and as about Royal Legal. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Megan. I've been doing real estate and consulting with Royal Legal now for about 3 to 4 years, but have been in this space much longer and have a pretty diverse portfolio ranging from short-term rentals, commercial loans, commercials, notes, all the way down to micro loans. So love this space. I've been in it for a while and have definitely tailored my law practice to this area. Now, Royal Legal, what we like to say is we are your one-stop shop. So we operate in all 50 states and we operate in a variety of legal topics related to you as an investor. We started around 2013, and since then we've helped our clients protect over $2 billion in assets. So we've seen all the fringe cases. You know, we not all of them, but we've seen majority of them, and we know the type of issues that are going to hit hardest for you, and we try to address those proactively. But if we have to be reactive, we come alongside you and help you build that team that you're going to need at that time. So the question we're going to be addressing today is, what is an estate plan? Do you need an estate plan, and when do you need an estate plan? So let's start out by just talking about the basics of, you know, when you start thinking about this idea of growing your business and you're getting to acquiring all these assets, when do you need that estate plan, or do you need an estate plan? So a couple common myths that we hear frequently here at Royal Legal are, one is you don't have enough time, you don't have enough for it to matter. So, you know, I don't have enough assets. I don't really need to make sure they're passed along. I'm not sure I need an estate plan. Second one is, you know, I may have assets, but I don't really care who they go to. I don't have kids at this point. I don't have a spouse or anything like that. So, you know, I think estate plans are really only for people with a family they're wanting to protect at the end of life. Third would be, I don't really care what happens. You know, I've worked my whole life to build these assets, but I'm not necessarily interested in what happens to them when I'm gone. Four would be, it's difficult, it's scary, I don't know how to manage it, I don't know how to set it up. And that ties into 5, which is it's expensive. So what's it going to look like for me to have to create and maintain it? Is that going to be overwhelming for me? And so our job here at Royal Legal is to help you understand how these are actual myths and how we need to debunk those. To do so, we like to highlight the top benefits of it. So, you know, having an estate plan is going to serve a couple purposes. One, it's going to have you be able to preserve that stable wealth that you've grown over time. 2, it's going to help you create a legacy that matters. So, you know, you work your entire life, you're growing the stable wealth, and you want to make sure that that legacy you've built during all of these years is preserved and passed on. 3, it's going to help you protect your loved ones. So, you know, whether that might not be, you know, kids or spouse, it could be distant relatives, it could be family members, or friends that have become family members. But you want to make sure that the wealth you've acquired, if you're not going to need it any longer, get into good hands and somebody else can use it. 4 is going to be protecting your assets and your wealth. And so we do that in conjunction with the entity structures we set up for liability protection. But you do also have some protections inherently through using an estate plan that you're going to be able to utilize here. And then 5 is going to be this idea of creating and maintaining anonymity. And so, you know, in real estate, particularly, that is the name of the game. A lot of the times it's not your first layer of defense, but it's a really good second one. So we want to put it in place whenever we can. And so an estate plan is a great tool to be able to add some anonymity to your assets as well. So that leads me to the question of, well, when do I need to get an estate plan? You know, now I know the reasons it could be helpful to me, but when do I pull the trigger and really start this process? So we kind of think of it in kind of a 2 model phase here. So the first one is, if you're someone who you're not really worried about what's going to happen to your money or your assets when you're gone, you don't really care if it just goes to the government and the government does as what it wishes. If you don't have any assets yet, or maybe your net worth is less than 50,000, or you don't have a business, you're not looking to start that business soon, you have no plans of it, you may not need an estate plan. There might not be enough there to formalize anything, and you don't have any desired wishes for what you do have, so it's not something you need to be concerned with. Now, if you're somebody who wants to pass on the wealth to future generations, you want to preserve that and carry on that generational wealth down the line. Or if you're someone who wants to make sure that the government's not going to control the wealth and assets you've worked to build. If you are someone who wants to protect your family from having to go through the probate process, which is the formal process when a will has to be submitted to the courts, and then there's an executor appointed, and you have to go through the process of going through those court hearings and the time and expense, and it can end up being years and thousands of dollars, and that can be really hard on a grieving family or set of friends. So if you're someone who wants to avoid that for your family and friends, then estate plan is a great option. If your assets are worth over 50,000, then another great point, you're going to save on taxes a couple other ways, but you want to make sure you're getting those protected. And the last one is the one we see most often is if you own a business currently, or you are looking to create a business, scale a business, anytime you have those business activities, it's a good idea to have an estate plan in place, because that's going to be your plan B. If you were to be in a car wreck tomorrow, what's going to happen to your business after that? And an estate plan is a great way to take care of some of that information. So what exactly would an estate plan be for you? Estate planning works a couple different ways. So, at the hub of this is going to be yourself. You are going to be the one who has acquired these assets. You're the one who is doing this planning, and you want to make sure everything that is related to you can be passed down to beneficiaries to when something happens. So we like to say that a properly prepared estate plan is going to help you minimize income taxes and probate costs. It's also going to provide for your family according to your wishes regarding the final distribution of your assets. So assets that may come into consideration are going to be your home, things like investments, business assets, really anything that you have worked to acquire. We want to figure out a way to protect that. And what we like to say here at Royal Legal is that a comprehensive estate plan is not a one document shop. It really is a much more tailored approach to having certain levels for different types of activities. So inside of that, we've got 6 that we typically say are going to give you that comprehensive plan. 1 is going to be your durable power of attorney. 2 is the medical power of attorney. 3 would be your HIPAA authorization. 4 is your living will. 5 would be your pour over will. And then 6 would be your living trust. And sometimes inside of that trust, you'll see something called a declaration of guardian as well. So let's break those down a little bit to what they actually are. So your durable power of attorney is a document that's going to name individuals who can make financial decisions for you if you're incapacitated or if you face a disability. So this is going to be the document that you can proactively get it signed, hand to someone, and then inside that document, it'll have triggering events. So for example, if you were to be declared medically incapacitated for a certain amount of time, that could be a triggering event. And that document is going to allow that third party, whoever you have chosen, to take that document and take any financial actions they need to that you have specified inside of that document while you can't do so. So that's going to be things like signing contracts or selling a property, managing your investments, going to the bank account for you. It's going to give them the ability to keep your life up and running from a financial perspective while you can't do so. Now, on the medical side of that, there's something called a medical power of attorney, and that's going to be the documents that names individuals to make your medical decisions for you when you can't. So this is going to be the one that if you are incapacitated, you're in the hospital, and you want someone who can make decisions for you, such as, if you need to be put on a feeding tube, do you want to, or what does therapy look like for you on the back end of this? Do you want to go and get that plan? So the medical power of attorney is also going to have triggering events where it doesn't come into play until certain events. And it's also going to allow you to specify exactly what decisions that individual can make for you. So those are the power of attorneys we like to focus on. And it's helpful to have both because they do accomplish different goals. You've got the financial side and you've got the medical decision side. Related to the medical side, you've also got this idea of having a HIPAA authorization pre-done. What that HIPAA authorization is used for is it is the document you'll hand to your medical providers to let them know who they were allowed to give your medical information to. So this document really is used to ensure that your private information is only shared with those that you have desired it to be. So, sometimes legally medical providers could give certain information to certain family members or things, but you can specify if you don't want that done or if you want it extended to additional people. So HIPAA authorization is a great thing to have on file so you can get to those providers when they need it. Next is going to be the living will. So the living will is a document that's going to declare your wishes with respect to life prolonging treatments and procedures. So this is going to be the type of events where if you are incapacitated and you're going to need that long-term sustaining care to keep all of everything functioning, the document's going to lay that out and it's going to detail what person can make that call. Lastly, we're going to have the pour over will. And so the pour over will goes in conjunction with the living trust. So you see it listed jointly here on our chart, but you'll also hear it talked about as a joint item a lot. They are two separate documents. So you've got the pour over will, the living trust, but they work together. So you hear them join together a good bit. The pour over will is the document that's going to say anything that I haven't specifically listed into my living trust. I want this document to say everything else I own that's not listed, go ahead and pour it over into my living trust. So it's considered a catch-all document. One of our attorneys here calls it the CYA. So with that, let's dive into what the living trust is. So the living trust is going to be the meat and the heart of your estate plan. It is the document where you're going to list your assets, you're going to list your beneficiaries, your trustee, and you're going to list what's going to happen to those assets, when and how. It is a revocable trust, so it does have some implications while you're living as well. You can amend it, you can change it. You do retain ownership while you're living, and then at your time of death, that's when that document kicks in and gives those next steps for your beneficiaries. And so inside of that, like we mentioned, you want to keep that living trust up to date, but if for some reason you miss something, one of your assets not listed, that's where the pour over will comes in, and it pours over that asset into the living trust. And related to that, we talked about the Declaration of Guardian. So the Declaration of Guardian is a document that names individuals who are going to be the guardian of your person and your estate in the event of incapacity. There's also a second version of this that you'll see that'll also be called a Declaration of Guardian of minors. And that can be related to, if you have minor children, who do you want them to go to? Who is going to take care of those kids in the event something happens? So these are the documents that we really think form the foundation for a comprehensive estate plan. So let's get into a little bit more about what the differences are. Like we said a minute ago, the pour over will is anything you forgot to put into the trust, and the living trust is going to be the meat of it. What that living trust does is it keeps your assets anonymous. It avoids getting caught in probate court, which we talked about can be extremely timely and extremely costly. The living trust also ensures you are the ultimate owner of everything while you are living, and then it dictates who the owner becomes upon your passing. It allows you to choose who gets your money instead of the government choosing that for you. If you don't have a trust or a will in place, the government uses the formula to dictate where those assets go. And I personally wouldn't want the government handling that for me. And lastly, it's going to control the process during your life and after. So like we talked about, it is revocable. So it's going to control a portion here, but that can be updated and amended. And then as soon as you pass, it does get locked in, and that becomes the dictation for what occurs then. Hospitalization protection, those are the things we talked about that regard the medical providers and medical care. So that's going to be your HIPAA authorization, healthcare power of attorney, and your durable power of attorney. Durable power of attorney is a little bit more outside of the hospitalization field because it is related to financial decisions. But the healthcare POA and your HIPAA authorization are going to be related to what information can be shared about your medical history, and who can that information be shared with, and who can make decisions for you about your medical care if you're not able to do so. So let's talk about beyond the estate plan. So now we know what an estate plan is, what it consists of. Do I need it? If so, when do I need it? What else may come into play as I am looking to create this holistic approach to structuring not only my business life, but my personal life and assets as well. Here at Royal Legal, you'll see this chart a good bit. So this is our comprehensive overview chart. And this is what we look at and say, if you are an investor who's got between $0 and $5 million in assets, here's what we need to be looking at potentially adding in. It's going to cover your asset protection, your tax implications, and as well your estate planning. So number one on the list, you'll see we've got estate plan listed. Number two is an offshore trust. This is for individuals who have got a pretty high net worth. So when you're starting to get up into that, 10, 15, $20 million range, this is when you want to consider an offshore trust. It's going to really reduce your tax burden. Living trust is number three, and that also, can be looped into the idea of number one, that living trust, like you said, is going to be the meat that's going to dictate what's going to happen after you pass. 4 is a traditional LLC. We use that for our operations piece. 5 is a solo 401k. That is going to be your retirement investment vehicle to ensure that as you are working, all of these years, you can put back and have tax savings on them and prepare for your retirement days. 5 is an anonymous trust. Now we use a variety of these. We use things like land trust. We use an anonymous trust for ownerships of our structures. So there are various ways we put these anonymous trusts in place, but you want to make sure you've got them in your structure so your name's not listed all over the public records as having this wealth acquired. 7 is we got the idea of the series LLC. Now, if you're in California, this may be replaced by a DST, but it is some type of structure that is going to be scalable and provide you with liability protection. 9, we've got the idea of the land trust, like we just talked about briefly, which is going to be an anonymous entity to hold title. So your name is not going to be on records related to deeds. 10 is the property, so that's going to be the actual assets you own. And then 11 is going to be the self-directed IRA, which is another great option for a retirement vehicle, investment vehicle to save on taxes, but also preserve that wealth for your retirement years. So we recommend that you want to have a structure like this by the time you're done thinking about what your entities need to look like. So a couple of frequently asked questions we get around this topic is, one, I've got my living trust, I've completed it. I see that it's got these exhibit pages at the back of it. What do I do with these? Do I do anything with these? Does my attorney fill them out? What's the purpose? Exhibits are where you're going to list your assets out that you want to include it in your living trust. So if it's something that can't be titled, so for example, if you've got jewelry or family heirlooms, this is where you're going to list it, and you're going to put what's going to happen to that asset. So this can be completed by yourself, a partner, someone who's going to be aware of the assets that you own and what you would like to happen to that. You can do it in conjunction with your attorney, but they're going to need your cooperation to understand exactly what needs to be listed there. 2 is, what does a comprehensive estate plan include? And that's where we talked about a moment ago. You've got this idea of having your pour over will in conjunction with your living trust, or excuse me, in conjunction with your living trust. And then you're going to have also the living will. You've got the healthcare directive, your HIPAA release, and then those 2 types of power of attorneys. So that's going to give you that full scope protection all the way around. 3 is, what about copies of my estate plans? How many do I need? Where do they go? What am I doing with these documents that I have gotten, that I've drafted and that have all my wishes inside of them? We typically recommend you have 3 copies at least floating around. 1, I would put in a fireproof box in your house. And inside of that, I would let a couple people know that that document is in your fireproof box. 2, we also recommend having a safety deposit box at your bank where you keep a copy. And then 3, give a copy to one of the representatives listing the document. So most often that's going to be your trustee. So that way they've got the document as soon as they need it. And then I would also let that person know where the other copies are as well. Another great option, if you wanted to, for a 4th one, would be to give a copy to your attorney. So when the attorney relays those documents to you, they're going to be unsigned. Once you've signed and completed it, send it back to your attorney. They can keep a file for you as well. 4 is, how specific can I be inside of this? Do I use certain language? What, can I really dictate out exactly what I want, or am I caught inside of these templated clauses? Excuse me. So the living trust is meant to be as flexible as you need it to be. There are some parameters, but there's not many. So what we do inside of that is we really take your wishes and who you want things to go to, and we craft the language to accommodate such. So it is absolutely flexible in that way, and it can be customized how you need it to be. 5th is, what happens if I sell an asset? So, as investors, we're constantly moving assets around. Does that mean I'm going to be happy updating my estate plan consistently? So majority of the time, the way we set up our structures, and most attorneys do, is that your living trust is going to be updated automatically when you sell an asset. It's not going to require you to take action on it. So I know personally, for the structures we set up at RLS, anything that goes underneath of the entities we set up, because your entities are owned ultimately by your living trust, if you remove an asset from the entity, it's removed from the living trust. Now, there might be some variations on that depending on what attorney you work with, but I do recommend some kind of structure where you're not having to go in and manually update that every time. So here at the end of our presentation, guys, we've got a couple of reviews that clients have left us just for you to review at your leisure, as well as we've got a case study. I would take a look at those when you've got a chance. And then on the last page, we've got our Royal Legal quiz. And so what the quiz is useful for is it's going to walk you through a series of questions to identify, what type of investor are you, what information is going to be most useful to you. That allows our team to really tailor your experience and make sure you're not getting flooded with information that's not going to be useful or going to be a high value experience for you. What we want to do is understand what your persona is, what your portfolio looks like, and connect you with things that are going to help you grow and improve upon your processes. So I highly recommend that quiz. It is the best way to get plugged in here. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up today. We'll move into the Q&A portion. At the end of this, though, this recording, as well as the slide deck, will be provided to you so you can finish reading those reviews, fill out that quiz if you like, and review any of this information. All right, guys, so I am going to stop sharing my screen here. Give me just a minute to get my screens reset up. All right, So let's hop into it. So, I don't think we have enough. We're not going to do a second breakout group today. So let's just do an extended version of the Q&A. So anybody want to start us off? Any questions top of mind for you? All right, we got a quiet group today, my friends. That's okay. So let me do a couple prompts then and see if there's anything that comes to mind for you. Are there any specific documents that we went over in that comprehensive estate plan that you need more information on? You're not quite understanding what the structure is, or maybe you have questions around what a typical distribution would look like, anything like that we can answer for you today. All right. Well, you guys are fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, then we can call it early or we'll leave it open for a few minutes. If you've got questions that are outside of estate planning, I'm happy to use the time however you guys need.
Hi, Megan. I got a quick question.
Sure.
When it comes to the estate plan, right?
Yeah.
And you're getting it set up. I mean, I know I'm working with you guys and getting it all put together, and I'm familiar with estate planning stuff, but generally for point of interest or point of knowledge, how long does it normally take for you folks to get an estate plan set up for somebody from scratch? I know it can get complex in time depending on how complex the structure is, right?
Yeah.
As far as the individual cases, but typically you guys have a norm that you look at when it comes to timing and how long it takes to put it all together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like I said, you hit the nail on the head. It really depends on the complexity of your estate. It also depends on how comprehensive you want to go with your estate plan. So we talked about the documents that would give you the full plan, but we can also do an ad hoc model where if you say, no, I really just need a power of attorney at this time. So for the full estate plan, right now we're operating off about a 6 to 7 week turnaround time period. If that's kind of a medium sized estate without a lot of complexities. Now, if you've got something where you're going to need special needs trust, military trust, or really these more specialized components, it could take a little bit longer. Or if you only need a couple of the documents, it can take less, but I would say probably 6 to 7 weeks is a good time frame. Okay,
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been a question because sometimes people in the past have asked me, oh, how long did it take for our family to get, certain estate plans set up? And I said, well, it really depends on your individual situation.
Mm-hmm.
I said, because sometimes people think just because they got one property or something that, oh, they don't need one yet. I said, trust me, having an estate plan and a trust makes a humongous difference. Because I said, we've faced family members who've gone through, as well as friends who've gotten issues with respect to going through probate.
Yeah.
And man, that is a nightmare,
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't realize how much control you lose, number one, in that particular case, especially if you think because you're not familiar with the probate process and you're a personal representative, you give that authorization off to someone else. Really what you're telling them is you're now in control. I'm giving you all the control,
Yeah.
And so, that's something that I think a lot of people, we try to tell everybody, hey, you need to get your estate plan in place. Doesn't matter if you got one property or you got 50 properties,
Yeah.
Or just having businesses, no matter what you have and no matter where you're at. I said, you need to prepare for that. I said, because otherwise the government takes it. So,
yeah,
No,
you're exactly right. I mean, we got a smaller group. I'll be candid. I've got a family member who passed away recently from COVID. And so inside of that, it's an extended family member for me, but it's someone that my mom was very close to, and they passed away without having any type of estate plan. And so now they're walking through that probate court process, and it has been a nightmare. There's been a lot of family infighting due to it and things like that. And so you lead to so many complications if you don't set these things up in advance. So that's why we highly recommend doing them early on, because you're right. I mean, the cost, and then you end up with people that you maybe didn't want involved in this process because of intestate laws. Suddenly they're getting involved, and it's a mess. So, I think an estate plan is one of those things that it's not a too overly burdensome financial commitment. You can get it done in a pretty economical way on the front end. So I think it's something that's worth that investment early on, particularly the way we set ours up. They can be low maintenance. So it's not something that's a burden to maintain either. So I highly recommend it. I have seen the downfalls of not having one. It is not something I would want to put on anybody for sure.
Yeah, we had one of our family members is going through probate, and what they didn't realize is when they gave up that authorization, it actually caused issues that they didn't even think it would cause. With the minute that they did that, what happened was in the process of them transitioning out of the property, one of the properties they were in, and they're a beneficiary, mind you, right?
Mhm.
You know, they had basically seemingly no rights, it seemed like, and because of their position, that, you know, the fact that they gave it over to a different representative to
Mhm.
handle for them. And consequently, these guys came through and they cleaned that house out
Yeah.
right from underneath them. And they had artifacts in there as well as collectibles that were over 300 years old.
Oh,
And they can't find it now,
yeah.
you know. And so people don't really realize what happens if you just let it go. You don't even think about it,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm trying to tell everybody, hey, listen, you just get one set up. I mean, you know, even if it's small and simple, start with something, you know.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I guess if there's anything that, you know, pass on to anybody else, for us as well as anybody else here that, you know, is listening, you know, by all means, if you're not set up, get one set up, because you're going to be, it's a shocker when you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
You know?
thank you for flagging that, Troy. You're exactly right.
Yeah. I had one other question. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt or take up the
No,
time.
go ahead. We've got a lot of
You know,
time.
when you got a syndication project or you got a multi-partnership project, especially in larger projects, right? Like let's say you're buying a shopping center or you're doing something like a major building, you know, and so you get additional partners involved. How do you guys recommend addressing a situation like that with respect to the estate plan side on structure for protection? Because if you do a sale, right, and you got to unwind stuff, like you said, if it's a sale, then it automatically comes off your living trust. But can you kind of explain the difference having it versus not having it in a case where you got a scenario like that, where you have other partners? You know, so if you could share a little bit of that.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can do it based on the partnership you're involved in. One of the best ways to do it is, you know, invest in a structure that has your estate plan at the top, because then if something does happen or anything, there's a sale, then you can transfer that to your estate. Someone can step into your shoes from your perspective. Now, you know, sometimes partnerships won't allow that. They'll want you to invest individually and things like that. And when we do, what we tell folks is if you need to invest individually, then what you need to do is to have a estate planning component inside of those operating agreements that you're using, any type of those corporate documents, because you can put in a clause that says, you know, if one member passes away or becomes incapacitated for any reason, here's the process it looks like for the rest of the members to take over it. And what that looks like a lot of times is the family may have the first right of refusal, the partners may have the first right of refusal. It depends on how you draft it, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. The cleanest way, though, if the partnership allows it, is to have your side of the investment in that partnership in the name of your structure that's connected to your living trust, though. So it really depends on what you're doing, but that's the cleanest way.
Yeah, that's always been a question that has come up a number of times, you know, because a lot of people like you get involved personally, you know, where you're one of many investors, right? But the reality is you got to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, it's particularly in cases like this, right, where you got a large investment going on. So, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for contributing, Charlie. You always have great questions, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, guys, anything else I can answer for you today? If not, we'll wrap it up early.
Yeah, I had one last question. It was about life insurance. Does that go into the estate or that's totally separate?
So with life insurance, there are certain, it depends on your state and your provider, but there are certain types of policies where you don't want to have your estate plan as the primary beneficiary. You're going to want to have like a spouse or whoever you want that to go to initially. But then almost always the living trust can at least be the secondary beneficiary, if not the first. So what we tell folks is you want to connect that life insurance policy with it. What you're going to have to do that is work with that policy holder. So whatever company you've got it through, to figure out what position the living trust needs to be listed at. Because what can happen if you list it in the incorrect position, you're going to get hit with some tax consequences and it's going to be pretty steep. So yes, life insurance goes into it, but how it goes into that is going to be an issue of working with the company that holds the policy to discover it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, guys, we'll go ahead and call it today then if there are no other questions. I really appreciate you guys joining us. Want to flag a couple things that Ken's got in the chat for us. So we've got our content calendar, which will tell you the shows we have coming up and some of the topics that are going to be related. We've also, these are recorded, so we'll be sending out the recordings to it. So if you found this particularly valuable or think someone in your network needs to hear it, feel free to forward that over to them. We've also got our Discord channels, which are relatively new, but those are our community engagement channels where you guys can connect with investors outside of these meetings. So they're set up like just a general chat type of thing. And those have been a lot of fun. I'm new to Discord, so I'm still figuring it out a little bit, but I've really enjoyed the constant engagement. I've got it set up on my phone where it alerts me anytime somebody posts, and I hop in when I think it's something that I could be useful for or something I'm just interested in. And then as far as today, in about an hour and let's see, 18 minutes now, we've got our Royal Investing Show, and that is our real estate 101 type of show. It's going to be very kind of high level topics. Today, we have a special guest talking about the eviction process and what happens when you can't evict someone. So I think it's going to be a really interesting show today. Highly recommend you hop into that. But that's all I've got for today, guys. Really appreciate you being here. And then if anything does come up, as always, myself, our staff are available to you. Just reach out. We'd love to help you however we can. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.